During the first few days of 2021, I made the first video on this channel. It was a review of the 2020 Christmas special of Mrs. Brown's Boys. In case you haven't seen that video, here's a spoiler. I didn't like it. Mrs. Brown's Boys, in its current incarnation, was first broadcast on the BBC in 2011. That first series of 6 episodes was essentially a retelling of the original series, which played on Irish television from 2002 to 2008. My mother was a fan of the early series and encouraged me to watch with her. I have to admit I was rather amused by the character of Agnes Brown. But I always felt the supporting cast, which is largely formed of performers from O'Carroll's own family, let the show down. After 2 series, my patience wore thin with the show. And after 3 series, my mother's patience wore thin too. And she used to love it. She went to see it live at the O2 at least twice. That is roughly when the show switched from making 6-episode series to making 2 specials a year. One at Christmas, one at New Year. In my opinion, rapidly declining in quality. British citizens celebrated Christmas 2020 in lockdown. I, like many people, was away from family and forced to watch TV. That's when I saw what I still consider to be the worst episode of a sitcom ever. And that's when I made my review. Since then, that video's garnered 19,000 views and lots of comments. So I thought it might be interesting to look at the feedback. So the first one. It might not have been one of the best Mrs. Brown's Boys. I'm glad we can agree on that. But I love Mrs. Brown's Boys shows. Okay, fair enough. We should be thankful that because of the pandemic we even got a show. That's where we differ there. I think they should have possibly played a repeat or not bothered. Either would have been fine with me. Next, the show began as a stage show and progressed to television and film with the same basic cast of characters, all written by Brendan O'Carroll. Okay, so, don't see how that's relevant to anything. The 2 mysterious to you, apparently, female characters are the daughters-in-laws of Agnes Brown. Yeah, I had forgotten when I was recording the review, and I didn't really want to spend the time looking it up because I thought there was more important things, considering their involvement in that episode was minor and inconsequential. But yes, thank you for telling me they are Mrs. Brown's daughters-in-laws, and I could not remember that. It's not intended to be particularly cerebral, although the music selection was to acknowledge the situation we find ourselves in during the international pandemic. Okay, I accept that as well, yes. Stand By You is to bring back to the main theme of the pandemic. The humour was always intended to be ribald, basic and immediately comprehensible. In Agnes's word, by every feckin' idiot who hears it. Occasionally, I suppose, it misses one. Okay, well, I didn't call anyone an idiot, but there we go. Mrs. Brown's Boys have given me hours of laughter. Seriously, stop analysing. This is hysterical. It has amused me in the past too. And it's a review, so I will be analysing. That is what a review's for. Somebody's commented on that. I just love it. Never laughed so hard in my life. It's kind of crazy, but in the way, but it's funnier and crap. So that makes it funny. Is you're not your just kind of doing that, and why ever happened, it happens. I think it's awesome. Alright. I'm just going to let that one pass without comment. Someone underneath that said, yes, stop commentary. It's a review. That's what I'm doing. If you want to watch the episodes by themselves, they're on iPlayer. And then somebody said, I agree, love them. Okay, jolly good for them. One of the funniest shows ever, period. Okay, fair enough. Let's agree to differ. Essentially, you're upset because you got an orange and you wanted an apple. It's almost like you've never watched an episode of Mrs. Brown's Boys. Esp? Especially since you don't know the character of Maria Brown. I mean, the fact that I didn't remember the character's name does not mean the criticism I have is invalid. I mean, if you watched a production of The Three Musketeers, does it matter that you don't know the characters of Porthos, Athos, Aramis or D'Artagnan when you're saying that the plot doesn't make any sense? I don't think the characters' names are that important to saying there are structural problems within. Somebody said, yes, the show is always funny stuff. Okay, again, you're welcome to your opinion. It wasn't great, but I can tell it's trying to be funnier than normal. And considering the amount of shit we all went through that year, you can't fault them for that. It's a family-run show and they wanted to use their airtime to cheer the country up. They succeeded in my opinion. And in my opinion, they did not. So, there we go. We've both had our say. Have you ever watched the show before? Like, this episode wasn't any different from any other, really. I mean, as though that's relevant to anything. I have seen the show before. In fact, I think I've seen every episode of the first 3 series. I don't think I've seen every Christmas special. And the fact that it's the same as the other episodes would only mean that it's consistent. It would not make it better. If you can't laugh at this show, you're not capable of laughing at anything. I'll let that pass without comment. I love the show. Good for you. So you saw that they managed to put out a COVID-time Christmas special that was not what you wanted. Well, let's cover it from another view. 1, they always had weird, unrelated things going on, as every normal family does. And 2, Buster would have given a great Christmas service based on always Bing on the downside looking up. He always come through when needed. 3. The song at the end by the character Marie, was perfect in that even COVID did not keep them from giving their fans something for Christmas. Right, that's confused me a little. Okay, I think they forgot to hit return before the 3. Okay, alright, so number 3, the song that the character Marie sang was perfect for COVID. Dude, who pissed in your Cheerios this morning? So you don't like the show? There's a little switch on your side of the telly that says on, off, or power. Use it and let the rest of us enjoy the show. Alright, it's a review. No, I didn't enjoy the show. That should be quite obvious. And you would want someone who's reviewing the show to have watched the show. I mean, you could have turned off the review and not commented, couldn't you? You could have taken your own advice and not said anything. Not every episode is going to be a smash hit, but as long as there's a few laughs out of it, I'll continue to watch. Most of the episodes that had me laughing until my sides ache. Still love you, Mrs. Brown. It surprises me the amount of people who are angry that I don't like something that they like. Oh my god, so negative. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Well, then you need to watch more things. I love it when they leave the bloopers in. I actually said anything that I quite enjoy that when they leave the bloopers in. So we agree on that. Why I mildly think the 2020 and New Year's Eve and 2020 episodes aren't cream of the crop, I largely put that down to have a limited cast due to the pandemic situation and distancing rules. However, I think you aren't overall understanding the very clever humour contained within all the episodes of Mrs. Brown. As far as sitcoms are concerned, and looking over the few decades worth, I personally think Mrs. Brown's Boys is up there with the all-time greats, such as 40 Towers. Or don't you like that either? I do like 40 Towers. I think 40 Towers is a masterpiece. But it's a mingling of many different styles of humour, which most, if not all other sitcoms, can't manage. You complain lots about things going on in this episode. Have you watched an episode of Mrs. Brown's Boys? Yes, I have, and I didn't review other episodes of Mrs. Brown. I was only reviewing one of them. Every one of them has a lot going on, with several storylines cleverly running simultaneously, yet never clashing. I disagree on that. Overall, the acting and characterization is brilliant, the script is superb, and the ad-libs surrounding any bloopers are brilliantly delivered. And each episode contains not only a huge variation of humour, but a distinct sense of caring and warmth. I just hope that in the not too distant future, Brendan will write many more series, exceptionally diverse and hilarious, brilliant sitcom. Mrs. Brown's Boys is one of the best shows. Good for you. This is fun stuff. You must be an actor that got fired for not having a fun personality. I'm not an actor. No, I am a writer. And I watched it from a writing perspective, and I found it lacking. I've never been disappointed with any Mrs. Brown's Boys episodes. Good for you. I think the title of the so-called review is ridiculous. I watch these over and over again and still laugh every time. Your review is wrong. Period. Maybe you're wrong. Ever think of that? I've watched Mrs. Brown's Boys many times. It still makes me laugh. Good for you. Have to disagree with you. Very well. It's a great show. Glad you like it. Yes, the 2020 Christmas and New Year's editions of Mrs. Brown's Boys were subpar compared to preceding editions. But This dissection using the face of Agnes Brown and character as enticement is even worse. Like many here, I stopped watching and listening before the halfway mark. Okay, well, it's a review of Mrs. Brown, so I will use a picture of Mrs. Brown to do it. And I hope people who want a review of Mrs. Brown's Boys watches a video called A Review of Mrs. Brown's Boys, because contained therein is a review of Mrs. Brown's Boys. Unlike you, I watched the entire episode before passing comment on it, but you are passing comment on me before even watching the halfway mark. After 2 minutes of your whining, it was clear that you were expecting too much. Too much being coherent storylines. Sorry you missed the point of this episode, but good luck with your movie. God bless. Thank you. Relevance to the plot? Who cares? It's bloody hilarious. I care. Love Mrs. Brown's Boys? Good for you. Did you ever watch cartoons or comedies as a youngster or adult? I look forward to your critique of Bugs Bunny. Actually, I could do a critique of Bugs Bunny and it would stand up much better than Mrs. Brown's Boys. Oh, same person commented. In case I commented prematurely, I did watch half AF your video. I think they mean of my video. In case I commented... Alright, so you watched half and commented on it. Fair enough. I didn't even get through half, someone else says. Still helps the algorithm, though. Promote taking the jab. You can now take a hike. I have never promoted taking any medications. That's not within my remit. I don't remember Mrs. Brown in the episode promoting it. She might have, but I don't remember that happening. But I certainly did not. Why need to think about info? It's a comedy, for God's sake. Don't think, just enjoy and laugh. I'm a comedy writer, and that is why I need to think about it. And I think a good comedy will stand up to analysis. If you compared this to something like Tootsie, where it has a man in ladies' clothes, or if you compared it to Some Like It Hot, both of which stand up to greater analysis than this film, because they structurally work as well as comedically work. If you don't like it, don't watch it. You don't have to spoil anyone else's fun. I haven't spoiled anyone else's fun. I have not campaigned for it to be cancelled. I don't want the show cancelled. I don't want people to stop watching it if they're enjoying it. I don't know how I've spoiled anything for anyone. I have created a separate video which has not been broadcast in place of Mrs. Brown's Boys. It is something you've had to search out on the internet and then watch. I love Mrs. Brown's Boys and think you're mistaken. So what if it's Christmas, it's comedy, and comedy has no boundaries? So I feel critique of this video makes little sense and almost waste of time, but thank you for your opinion. Okay, well you didn't like the video, so there we go. Have you ever watched the show? Yes, I have. It isn't Shakespeare, but it wasn't intended to be. Remove that stick and relax. I never said that they should be putting Shakespeare on the BBC instead. I didn't compare it to Shakespeare at any point. And even if I did, I think there are flaws in Shakespeare's work. Particularly the comedies. My God, this guy has too much time on his hands. If you're not happy with the show, pretty simple, don't watch. It's a review. I made a review. I mean, you had the time to watch it and then comment on it. So that makes you having more time than I have. It's such a downer. Mrs. Brown's Boys are so funny. Okay, fair enough. Lighting up, you tight git. If that's not your problem, don't fucking watch. And quit peeing in everyone's punch bowl. I don't believe I've done that. You had to watch the video. I didn't put this on TV. This isn't being paid by license fees payers' money. This is the funniest show ever. This video was the most boring. Okay. 104 subscribed. Mrs. Brown's Boys millions planet-wides of fan. Sorry. Well, I'm punching up then, if nothing else. You don't have much of a case, I'm afraid, considering you don't know Maria, name who is Dermont's wife. That. Sorry, watched up to Maria hair bit, then turned off, lol. Again, I say it. I couldn't remember Maria's name. I know it now. I don't believe that makes any change to the criticism therein. If I'd said Maria at that point, do you think that would have changed anything? Whoever talking is an FU wit. This is a great show, should more of. And I'm the FU wit. Stop analysing the show. I get a laugh from the show, don't watch it then. I'm not stopping you from watching it. If you don't find it, you're clearly missing a sense of humour. Maybe that's the case. It would be much better if someone would stop the commentary, just like fingers on a chalkboard. If you wanted to see unedited episodes, go to BBC iPlayer, where they all are. Who cares? I care. Who cares? It's a funny show. It doesn't have to make sense to you. I won't be following you, sorry. You ruined the show. Let it play out like others do. At least give your opinion so I can turn it off before you talk, sorry. Right. If you want unedited episodes, they are on iPlayer. It's a review, so I'll be giving my opinion. The show is barely funny at all. Fake audience laughs, can barely understand a word they say. That's nice that someone's sort of agreeing with me. Most people who are agreeing just click the like rather than actually saying something. And someone's replied to that person, use closed caption if the Iris brogue is too much for you, Tory. The laugh track is for the studio audience, not canned laughter. If you don't like the show, find one you like better. I mean, I don't know why you're calling him a Tory. Believe it or not, I quite like it when people leave comments on my videos, and there's nothing wrong with a healthy difference of opinion. So do keep leaving them. I'm Scott Kingsnorth, and I'm making a movie.